Here we go.
Thank you, Alan. Well, I'm wearing my brand new shield, clear shield. It's a lot more fun for me to be able to look through and see you without something tight against my face. I'm sorry you're still wearing your masks, but you can see my whole face this way, whether you want to or not. And people who lip read will be able to see it a little bit better. I know there's often a glare here.
Does it fog your glasses?
It does not fog my glasses. We lost my, there we go.
One of those.
Yeah, it doesn't fog my glasses. Yeah, if you want to say afterwards, I can tell you where I got it. So thank you for being here. Good afternoon. Today we'll be talking about resilience, and I want to let you know that I am not the expert. I have done some reading, I have some experiences I can tell you about, and I have a model to show you. However, I already know that you have experienced many more things than I'll be 70 in a couple of months, but you have experienced probably so many more things where you have practiced resilience, learned resilience, and bounced back. So I'm hoping it'll be like the last time I spoke with you, and you'll do lots of great sharing. Now, doesn't look like we have Brianna here with a microphone, right, Alan? Oh. Alan, doesn't look like we have Brianna with a microphone today.
Oh, I can get it.
Oh, you might be busy.
That's okay.
That's wonderful. All right, well, let's start then. Thanks for inviting me back. Our agenda is simple. We'll just talk about what is resilience. I'll show you a model, and then you can look at which resilience behaviors that are in that model have you already used, and can you add some new behaviors? I hope you each have a rubber band. Is there anyone who does not have a rubber band that is on your chair? Oh, in the far back, I did not put one on that chair. Thank you, Alan. Yes, feel free to take one from an empty chair. I spare no expense at this presentation to give you a gift. So that's your present from me. And I do that because since resilience is really just the ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change, it's like a rubber band. If you can bounce back, come back from a setback in your life, whether it's positive, like making a move to the Hearthstone, or getting married, there's still a big change in someone's life. Or it could be a more sad or negative situation. The better you can bounce back, the more resilience you can build. Also, resilience is an emotional muscle that can be strengthened at any time. Let me tell you about a recent opportunity for me to practice resilience. I went to pick up my dry cleaning on 5th and Mercer at Helena's Dry Cleaning. I was just getting a blouse, and they gave it to me in a very long, slithery plastic bag. And in order for it not to fall on the ground, I took the bag, pulled it over my left arm, and then made sure that the long, slithery plastic bag was not trailing behind. I walked out of the dry cleaners. I put my hand in my pocket to get my keys because my car was just 8 feet in front of me at the curb. And without me knowing it, the bag did slither to the ground, and I walked right up that bag until there was no more bag, and this arm was holding the blouse, this arm was in my pocket, and I was slammed right to the ground. Unfortunately, my right shoulder ended up on the curb. I shattered my humerus bone, both vertically and horizontally, and I can tell you, when you break your humerus bone, it's not humorous at all. I also herniated 3 discs in my neck, and they had to fuse it and put it in a titanium cage. Even today, my hands and my forearms are kind of numb and tingly from time to time, not constantly, and not very much. But it's still nerve damage because I did injure my spinal cord. Here's a picture my daughter took of me in the hospital with the little oxygen light or whatever on my finger. And she was trying to show, because I was smiling, that everything was probably all right. I was in the neck brace for 4 months. I had to sleep sitting up because my shoulder was broken, and you cannot, if you even tip it, it falls out of place because they can't set it. They don't do body casts anymore. So I slept sitting up for 4 months. But with a lot of help from my friends, I learned that Japanese proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8. I did recover. That was actually in 2017. And boy, that's warm. It's a really toasty neck brace. So I did fully recover. I have full mobility of both arms, my neck. Can't really look straight up, but that's okay. Don't look straight up very often. So I learned a lot about resilience because it took a while for me to heal, even after the 4 months. I had physical therapy, but I had some wonderful support, as I said. A similar kind of thing has happened to my parents many times in their lives, actually. These are my parents, Ralph and Clara Wright, and they lived to be 95. I think I've told some of you the story last time. They were married for over 70 years. They were madly in love, and they died 30 days apart. And I was privileged to take care of them for the last 7 years of their lives. But throughout their lives, they had lots of setbacks. Some of you have had some of these same setbacks. For example, they went through the Great Depression, World War II. They had several deaths in their lives, not only a baby, their own parents, all their siblings, and all of their friends died before they did. They had heart attacks, strokes, fractures, amputations, and my father had some dementia before he died at 95. They even had a burglary in their home while they were in it. So how did they get through these things? It was not simple. One of the things that they do, or used to do, when they would try to recover from something like that, they used a lot of humor. They felt if you could laugh through it, you could live through it. Of course, sometimes right in the middle of the situation was a little difficult to laugh. But my dad always used to say, someday we'll laugh about all this. And my mom would say, well, why don't we start now? So this is what I got to grow up with, which was fabulous. So now I would like to find out from some of you, think a little bit about, oh yes, their love kept them going through. Think a little bit about maybe 3 setbacks that you survived. Could be financial crisis, or a death, or broken heart, or it could be just a large life event like a wedding, moving, changing jobs, retiring from a job. Even if you really like it, it's a big change in your life. So think about 2 or 3 things, and I'd like to hear from some of you. We don't have time to hear a whole story, like 20 minutes of what happened, but if you could just say, I've had this happen to me, this happened to me, or this happened to me, or you could just share one thing. So we'll hear from about 2 or 3 people. Who would like to tell us something that they've survived? Thank you.
I have one sibling, a younger sister, who died 6 years ago with dementia, and my parents had died many years before that, and so the setback is I became an orphan.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it, when both your parents are finally gone? No matter how old you are. Anyone else care to share? One over here, Ellen, on the left. Thank you. Do we need him to run, or could he walk at a reasonable pace? Yeah. Good.
Hi, Dick Gillette. My mother died when I was 11, and the circumstances of her death had to do with her contracting tuberculosis and being sent away to recover in sanitarium, and the news came that she had recovered and was coming home in another 2 or 3 weeks. And then a phone call came that she had suffered a setback and was in a coma and had 3 days to live. So that was a huge blow to me at age 11, but I had a real strong family support, and I've tremendously appreciated the 11 years that she was there with me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing. Some of these are difficult to share, aren't they? One more, or if no one is ready to share yet, we can move on. Did I see a hand over here? Or? No. Oh, yes, we do.
I see
No,
someone
she's
pointing
waiting.
at
Oh, she's
someone else.
waiting. All right. She was waiting. All right, thank you for sharing. I know that it's difficult to start right off, sharing in a group, but also something that was difficult for you to have happen in your life. But just think about those things, because we've each had them, and we'll be working with those throughout the rest of the session. Also, don't forget, COVID, pandemic, is a personal trauma for all of us. In fact, some large traumas can be even called a life quake. A life quake. Because they can be that traumatizing. So there's a great book called Option B, which is by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant, and it talks about resilience. It's all about facing adversity and building resilience and finding joy. Great quote in the book is, "There is a naturally learnable set of behaviors that contribute to resilience, and those are the behaviors that we gravitate to more and more as we age." So now I'm going to show you a model of those behaviors, and I'm sure you've used many of them, but we can take a look at each one as we go. And again, as you know, Alan's recording this, and I can also send you my slides so you can take a look at this anytime you want. Here's the model. I did not make this up. It's not straight out of the book I just mentioned. It's a result of lots of research I've done. Many models have 10 or 12 items, and I think that's a few too many, so I kind of boiled it down to these. Using optimism and humor, taking stress breaks, supporting others, asking for help, engaging socially, and remembering how many times you've come back from a stressful situation or a trauma. So let's just take them one at a time. You'll have more opportunities to share if you want to. Optimism and humor. Well, this is one of the behaviors that I gravitate to. It's my default. I believe that, of course, raised by my parents, if you can laugh through it, you can live through it. So I also believe you should take things a little bit at a time. My neighbor taught me, inch by inch, life's a cinch. And if you think about a baby learning to walk, if they take little tiny steps, even if they fall down about every 5 steps, they don't have very far to fall, and that doesn't hurt, and they just get back up again, because they take small steps, and they can keep on moving and learn to walk and run. However, yard by yard, life is hard. The more we try to go, the more we try to attempt, it can get more difficult, and yet that's part of life. We have to move forward. We can't always take the baby step. So for example, when I was learning to climb Mount Rainier, when I was training, they told us, kind of too late to back out, that we might have to jump over a big ice crevasse. Thank you, I've already paid my money and you have it now. So, but in order to train for that, and to get us inch by inch into that, they said, in a training room, in a room like this, all right, here on the floor, we're measuring out a yard, 36 inches. I want you to step over that yard. So we would practice stepping over that yard and then jumping over it. Then we would put our packs on, our loaded packs, 35, 40 pounds, and then take a running jump and jump over that yard. So it's pretty nothing to fear in a room with a flat floor. Then, when we got up to the mountain, to climb the mountain, lucky for me, there were no crevasses to to jump over when I went up Mount Rainier. But if there had been, I know that I would have felt a little more comfortable because the instructors said they would actually measure the crevasse because they have to know you can't just get on the edge of it. If you step on the crust of it, that could fail. So they would know exactly how far it was. If it was longer than a yard, they would put a ladder over it. Not that I wanted to walk over a ladder with a crevasse down, 50 feet or 100 feet, but you're roped up and the instructor kind of stands on the other side of that crevasse, and as you're going across, they're tugging on it just a little bit so that you can get across. But if you practice things like resilience, you can get through a lot more than if you never had one setback your entire life until you were 80. And sometimes that happens to people where there just really isn't anything where they can count on themselves, learn to count on themselves first. Henri J.M. Nguyen said, "Hope means to keep living amid desperation and to keep humming in the darkness." And that's part of what we do almost every day. Just kind of keep humming. We don't know what will happen, but if you don't keep humming, then you fall into desperation. So when I had my neck injury, my shoulder injury, I call it when I was broken, because I was broken. My friends knew that humor would help me, and so they sent me cartoons. They called it Happy Hour with Dori. I don't really drink, so instead of coming over at 5 o'clock and bringing bourbon, they would send me, anytime during the day, a joke or a cartoon, or they'd call me and say something fun and funny, and that was called having Happy Hour with Dori. So here are two of the cartoons they sent me. This one says, it's a doctor saying, "Hi there, what can I do for you?" And the patient said, "I broke my arm in 3 places. What's your professional advice?" The doctor says, "Stop going to those places." Old joke. 1919 vaudeville whiz bang. Then I got this one, which is a cat with a cone on. Ha ha ha, Dory's in a neck brace. But it sure brightens up your day. It's just something to make you kind of pull out of that pain for just a second. Charlie Chaplin said, "To truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it." Hard to do when it's physical pain and it's screaming at you and throbbing at you. But it helps. It helps. So, who here uses humor to overcome a setback? Does anybody resort to humor in their life? Yes. What kinds of humor do you like? Do you like funny videos, or do you like funny movies, or do you like, over here, the blue blouse, Alan, thank you. Did you raise your hand?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things is cartoons, comic cartoons.
Cartoons. Yeah. Fun jokes. Anybody else kind of pull in humor when they're not feeling so well?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll be watching the Marx Brothers here on Saturday,
Oh,
so
fun.
that'll be nice.
Yeah, you can go to YouTube and look at old Marx Brothers films, or even just clips. Laurel and Hardy, W.C. Fields, Mae West, any old comedian if you want to. By the way, I watched an episode of the Honeymooners, which my parents would always watch. There were only 3 or 4 channels, so you watch what's on it, right? And I was surprised and I guess saddened by how rude and awful that show really is. He was always telling Alice he was going to send her to the moon, and that wasn't a nice, friendly thing to say. Anyway, there's a lot of kinds of humor. Anyone else use humor to get them in a better mood if they're feeling down? Probably everybody. Yeah. All right. We're not advancing here when I want to advance for some reason. All right, the next, I see the white type does not show up well. I will change that next time. Next item on the model is taking stress breaks. If you're stressed out, it's okay to, and you need to, de-stress. So for example, if you know on the stress meter that you are, why can't I have lift off here? Yeah, if you know on a stress meter between being very relaxed and calm all the way to panic attack, if your style when something bad happens is to kind of go right to the, oops, hello, what are we doing? If you go right to the relaxed, calming, coping situation, then that's probably going to serve you well. But if you know that you go right to the panic attack mode, why doesn't this? You don't know what's happening, but I'm actually pressing it every time I go like that. It's not going. If you know this is you, then all you need to do is to realize it and to do something to calm yourself down. Just like this day and age, when we know that we rely so much on electronics, and especially some people have cell phones, and if you see that battery down, you're running to find a charger cord, right? Because you just can't imagine running out of battery. But that's no different than your health and your mental state. Needing to recharge is really important to pay attention to it and to take advantage of that. This is Chief Dan George, and he had a quote that said, "May silence keep you strong." And I'm sure many of you are practicing or have read about that practicing silence, meditation, being present or mindful, and doing reflection is a very good way to center yourself, to calm yourself. And this can happen even if you're in a horrific situation. Keeping your head usually means you have to stop for a second, gather yourself, and then move on. So, for example, one of the ways that I like to relieve stress is to hang out in my backyard, sometimes with my cat Pearl. There she is sitting in the sunshine, just doing nothing, which is what cats get to do. I told her the rent was due on November 1st. She did not pay it. She's never paid me one dime for rent. Anyway, but I also like to hike. And this is a shot I took of Reflection Lake at Mount Rainier. And gosh, to me, being out in nature is a great way to stop and reflect. I walked Green Lake this morning at 8, and oh man, the sunshine hitting some of those golden leaves was so beautiful. So I'd like to ask you, what do you do to relieve stress? Do you put on a calming record? Listen to me. How many of you have a record player in your room right now? Oh, and some of you do. And so what kinds of things do you do to relieve your stress? We have one. Would you raise your hand?
I walk and also mindfulness.
Walk and mindfulness. Great. Oh, you have another one?
Every day here at the Hearthstone on channel 370 at 1 p.m. there's Tai Chi. And the very first movement in Tai Chi, beginning at that 1 p.m. hour, is labeled by the instructor a stress reducer.
And you listen to classical music.
Oh, and I listen to classical music a lot.
Tai Chi, classical music, and that's right, Alan, you saw the next one. And are you in the back in the red? Do you have something to say too?
Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. Yeah. Did you have a comment to make in the back? No? Okay. Oh, we have one over here. Thank you.
I pray.
Prayer. Sure. Prayer, faith. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing. This is a good group for sharing. All right, and the next piece of our model says, support others. Now you might think, wait a minute, if I'm going through a crisis, how can I support anyone else? And yet, those of you who have done it know that that's a great way to keep your mind off of your problems. It's hard to do, but it really can help. Martin Luther King Jr. said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? How many of you know who the author, Elizabeth Gilbert is? She wrote a book called Eat, Pray, Love, and has written many other books. Elizabeth has a great story that she calls the bus driver story. She was riding the bus in New York on a nasty December day. It was pouring down rain. Friday night, 6:30, late. The bus was packed. People kept getting on. They were wet. Their umbrellas were dripping. They were not in good moods. They worked all day. And as they get on, even some people were kind of having words with someone else and trying to find seats, standing on people's toes, and it was not a good situation. The bus driver said on his loudspeaker, "Folks, it's a bad night. We're all upset. We want to get home. I have a suggestion. When you get off the bus, just take your troubles and put them in my palm. My last shift tonight is to drive right over the Hudson River, and I will take everything that's bothering you and I'll throw it in the river on my way back to the bus terminal." And nobody said anything. It seemed a little bit silly, a little bit over the top. But the next guy that got off the bus walked up to the front, went like this, and just threw nothing into the bus driver's palm. The bus driver just went like this and then kept driving the bus. And people started giggling. And every person after that put their troubles in the bus driver's palm, and who knows what happened to him after that, or did he really mind putting the troubles in the Hudson River when he was on his way home. And the bus driver could have been in an even worse mood than anyone on the bus. But he took the time to support them and went ahead and took the load off of them, and it lightened up the whole bus.
Nice.
Yeah, isn't that a great story?
Yes.
Good story.
I love it. And you may have heard that in one of my last presentation that I do like to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. I can't wait to get back to it because we're not going to other countries now with COVID. On the far left, you see me on a very precarious ladder, homemade ladder. I'm actually sanding up the building. It's a concrete block building, but in El Salvador, they paint the building beautiful colors. And so, they're homes, beautiful colors. And so, once you build it, you need to actually sand the little nubby, some of the nubbiness off. The center photo is my friend Heidi in the white hat, and she's moving some sand. We actually sifted sand. You don't buy these things there, so that we could make a fine stucco. And then on the far right, you have my friend Rhonda, and she's actually painting the inside of the building so far, because that's already been sanded, with a beautiful goldenrod color. They have beautiful bright colors. And I love working with Habitat. I've been to China, Zambia, El Salvador, Honduras, and India. And I went, the year that I broke myself in February, in September I went to China and helped build. I was recovered, but I was very careful. But I was recovered, so I went ahead and went on the trip. Yeah. So I guess I'd like to ask you, come on, back. Oh, what can you do to support others? It can be something like sending a card. It can be calling them. Would anyone care to share something either now or past in their life, what you have done to support someone else when you might have been hurting yourself, or even if you weren't? What can we do to support other people?
Listen.
Oh, isn't that like the number one thing? Listen to them. Yeah, I love that. Anyone else care to share? Yes, please.
My birthday is in September, and it was just a few months after we moved in here. And on my birthday, there must have been half a dozen to a dozen cards on the door, under the door, of all the people on the 9th floor that we have gotten to know and love over the months we've been here. And I realized that that's one of the things that we do whenever someone has a birthday, just to acknowledge them, I think. And it really made an impact on me, and I hope it makes an impact on everyone.
Yay, 9th floor.
Yay, 9th floor. Oh, the 9th floor people are here.
9 is divine.
Do you have something you'd like to contribute? Or are you saying 9th floor? Oh, she's saying 9th floor. Yay! Well, exactly right. And when people, especially when people have a birthday here, they may or may not be able to be visited by their friends and family, especially during COVID. And it's really nice if inside the building people can recognize their friends and family while they're here. Yeah, thanks. Muhammad Ali says, service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Am I going backwards? Oh, we already did this. Sorry, this isn't working. Maybe I better check the batteries next time. All right, another thing you can do to build your resilience and to make sure that you are on your way is to ask for help. Not everybody can ask for help. It's not as easy as it sounds. So I always tell the bread and milk story. When I moved into my current house on Queen Anne Hill 33 years ago, the next door neighbor was Wilma, and she was 92. And I immediately, introduced myself, and we had a lot of fun talking in the front yard and over the back fence. And within just 2 or 3 weeks, she called me, exchanged phone numbers, of course. She called me and said, Dori, I don't want to bother you. I do not want you to go out of your way. But is there any possibility that in the next few days, you might be able, if you're already going to the grocery store, could you maybe get me a loaf of bread and some milk? And she said, I twisted my ankle, and I'm not really getting up now. And I said, of course. And she said, okay, whenever you decide to go, come by and I'll give you the money. And I said, oh, don't worry about that. We'll figure that out later. I wasn't going to the store that day, but I immediately went to the store. I got her bread and milk and a little bouquet, little plant, a little cactus plant. Brought it to her house. She was shocked. I called her ahead of time and I said, can I come to your back door or your front door? Where should I come so that you don't have to walk as far? And I gave her the bread and milk, and of course she insisted on paying me, which is fine. But it was nothing to me. It was nothing. Why couldn't I do that for my next door neighbor? She hurt herself. So I'd like to ask you, no pressure, but how many of you would help out a neighbor that you didn't really know very well? Doesn't have to be in this building, but just before in your life, how many of you, just raise your hand, would help someone if they said, could you please just get me some bread and milk? Every single hand in this room is up, I think.
Old Crow.
What's that?
I used to get an Old Crow for my neighbor.
Old Crow for your neighbor, yes. To heck with milk. Where's the booze?
That's what you needed.
Yeah, exactly, especially if you've hurt your ankle. You might need Old Crow, right? And whenever I ask this at a presentation, every hand goes up. Of course I would help. A neighbor who took the time to call me and actually put herself out and ask me if I would help, of course I would help. Everyone says so. Now, how many of you would call a neighbor that had just moved in maybe 3 weeks ago and would say, I hurt my ankle, would you go get bread and milk? How many of you would do that? 2, 3, 4 people. And that's the way it always goes. We know for a fact anyone would help someone else out. It's been proven to me every time I do these presentations. And yet, we're reticent to ask for help when we really need it. When I broke myself that day, called my brother and he met me at emergency and drove me home. And they sent me home with some oxycodone, which I needed, and I took, as I was just trashed, and the nerve pain. Anyway, I got home. I could hardly sleep even though I was in a lot of pain, and even with the oxycodone they had given me. But about 2 a.m., that dose had worn off. It was time for me to take another dose if I wanted to get any sleep at all and feel better from the excruciating pain. They had given me the pills in a child-proof container. I couldn't get it open because I had actually sprained this arm when I fell, but this was the one that was shattered, and of course my neck, and I had no way to open that container. I actually put it on the floor and I tried stamping on it, but the plastic is so hard. It's not just a flimsy plastic like an old toy we used to have where you could step on it. I thought of getting out a hammer, but I couldn't open my junk drawer to get the hammer. I couldn't do anything. And I started to cry. And I thought, well, you could call the tenants who live downstairs in your basement apartment. No, they have to work, they have to get up the next morning. Don't want to bother them. I thought, well, you could call your next door neighbor who's been one of your best friends for 29 years. No, it's 2 a.m. I can't do that. So I sat there in pain and cried and cursed myself for not asking for help. And I never did that again. And a couple days later, after my friends had put together a whole schedule of who would help me go to doctor appointments and who would bring me food and all that, make me food, serve me food, for the first few days, they had to feed me. I couldn't move a thing. So once that happened, I realized, you're not serving yourself. You're adding to your stress if you can't ask your very best friends and your family for help. I felt really foolish. Part of why I put this presentation together is hope that nobody ever does that again. So have there been times when you could ask for help, but you don't, or you haven't? And if so, what has stopped you from asking for help? Oh, we have one in the front here, Alan. I say one like you're just a number. Sorry, I don't know your name.
Don't.
I'm Don.
Hi, John.
I think we are taught from the very earliest years of our lives that in this society that you have to be strong, you have to be self-sufficient, and so asking for help is showing weakness.
I think you're right. It's the American way. But your bootstraps, pull up by your own bootstraps. Don't grovel there. Don't be weak. And yet, where did that get me at 2 a.m.? But complete inability to even function and focus, and just laying there as a slobbering mess in my own home. Anyone else? Have there been times when you could have asked for help, or even now, but you haven't? And if so, what is it that stops you? Okay, well, you can take that with you and think about it. All right, number 5 on our resilience model is to engage socially. I'm going to show you a graph. The graph is, I'm sorry, these are sometimes smaller and not easy to read. As far as staying alive, staying healthy, and staying alive, living the longest, these are some of the things that contribute to that. Having clean air, watching out for hypertension, being more lean than overweight, exercising, watching your other issues for your heart, cardiac health, and then getting a flu vaccine. And you'll notice this is an actual graph showing how important these things are as a percentage of the things that contribute to longevity. This is only part of the graph. I'm going to show you the second half of it. Well, I'm going to show you the whole graph now. These things are going to be at the top of that graph on the next slide. And it's going to be small print. Sorry, but I had to fit them all on. So notice the first 6 things are the things we already talked about. Then we have, after flu vaccine in the middle, quit boozing. They actually say if you cut back on alcohol, you'll live longer. They didn't say stop it altogether, although it says quit boozing, but really watch how your alcohol intake. Quit smoking. We've all heard that can increase your lifespan. Close relationships. Having close relationships, whether it's family or friends or a pet, is really valuable to continuing your life the longest. But the number one longest bar on the bottom of the screen is to engage socially, which is different than just having close relationships. It means getting involved in something socially. For all the introverts, sorry, it really is number one. This has been shown time and time again in studies, and yet there are many ways to engage socially that don't involve going to a huge party or joining some club or group. You can still do it individually. So I'd like to ask, now here at Hearthstone, I'm aware of some of the programs you have, but how are you connecting socially, either here at Hearthstone or with people outside when you can, with friends, family, maybe even distant relatives, trying to keep it engaged with them, or people of younger generations? Anyone want to talk about how you do it? Yes. Oh, he's running. I love it.
I learned to text mainly to connect with my grandchildren. And so that was the way I started.
Yeah, learning to text, because the kids do it, and now I do it too, of course. Yes.
Every Sunday, my brother or I call each other or FaceTime each other. And both about the same age, so.
Yeah.
We're on their age, but we text each other, which we haven't done that before.
Yeah, that's great. So just keeping in contact and making a schedule even. Let's just do it every week.
Every 2 weeks, my family gets on Zoom, and the children's father and I are divorced and have been for years, but he will be on it, I will be on it, my 3 kids, and the 4 grandchildren. So every 2 weeks on Sunday evening, and we get together for an hour, hour and a half. It's
wow.
Wonderful.
That's great.
All over the country.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Alan, what kinds of things are going on here at Hearthstone? I know it's tough with COVID, but what kinds of things are going on here that people can get involved with socially?
Well, there's the movie night every Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
And then we also have a book club. We have a card playing group every Friday. We have a writing group, a poetry group. We have...
You've got a lot. You don't have to, it's not a test, but yeah, so there's a lot.
Yeah, we have a special event next Wednesday where people are going to come and read poetry or listen to poetry. So there's concerts put on entirely by residents at this point.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
yeah, and it's just endless. There's so much stuff. It's really good.
There's a weekly current events group.
A weekly, oh, there's a current events group that talk about the current events, or that
Weekly.
Weekly, all right.
Every Wednesday, 10 a.m., 10:40.
Wednesday, 10 a.m. How many of you have been to one or more of these in the last 2 weeks? Keep coming. Yeah, it's important to stay engaged socially. I just showed you a graph that proved it. All right, last is to remember your comebacks. Now, when you recover from a setback, it's called a comeback. And we all have returned to our normal life, already in progress, and we have recovered from these setbacks in our lives. So if you remember the times that you bounced back from all of the things that have happened in your life, that can help you move through the next issue, the next time. Sorry to say, there can be a next time of something where you'll have to buck up and get your resilience, gather together, and move through it. For example, Here's my friend Ron, and that's me on the right with my beautiful neck brace on. Ron was very helpful to me when I hurt myself. He drove me to some doctor appointments, as did many of my friends, and brought me some food, etc. Well, about 3 months later, after he'd done many things for me, you notice I don't have a sling on my arm anymore. My shoulder was healing, but my neck still had to heal. He fell and broke his leg, he broke his mid-calf, and snapped it just walking across the street. And so then I was able to drive by that time, so I went and picked him up and brought him to Golden Gardens, and we got some lunch and sat on a bench in the sunshine. And you know, we were broken but not beaten, and you just have to keep going back and forth, remembering, and we both have this picture, by the way, and just remembering, hey, there was a time when we were both incapacitated. He couldn't drive. Both of us were in pain from time to time, but you just keep remembering, what did you do to get through it? And for me, as I mentioned, humor and my friends really helped me through, because you know I didn't ask for help much. Well, one way to look at it is you've already survived everything you thought you wouldn't. And in the Japanese tradition, how many of you are aware of kintsugi? Kintsugi is a tradition where if a nice piece of pottery or ceramic breaks and it's worth repairing, they will repair it with gold paint, glue, and then they'll paint gold on where the cracks were. Because instead of thinking it's old and ugly and now it has cracks, it's something more valuable now because it survived. It got to be repaired. And so they're celebrating, and to see ceramic or pottery around someone's home that has the gold paint on it is proof that we can be repaired and we can move forward. So, as we begin to wrap up, I'd like you to think about your comebacks. What has happened to you when you get over a trouble or a stress in your life, a big setback? What kinds of behaviors have you relied on most? We just went over all of these. Is there anything that you know you gravitate towards? And if so, would you care to share it? Anything you really do, maybe more than anything else, to get over a problem? Yes?
Go for a walk.
So she goes for a walk, so that's like taking a stress break, right? So that's number 2. So that's one way you go right to, of these 6 ways to get over something. You like to use the de-stressing technique. Thank you. Yes?
Reach out to a friend, talk to a friend, and help a friend. Get out of my problem, and also solve what's going on with me. Get a second opinion. My life is a bit bright.
Absolutely. So go engage socially, talk to someone else, and see how they're doing, and get that help from them. What else? What do you like to do more? Yes?
I volunteer drive, and so if I'm feeling stressed, I ask for more rides to be given.
Oh, wow. So if you're stressed, you actually go out and support others. You increase that so that you can be there for someone else. And does that relieve the pressure and thinking about your own troubles?
Yes, because a lot of the people that I give rides to have troubles, and they often talk about it a lot. And so I just listen, and I'm not thinking about my problem.
Yeah, so yes, she listens to other people's problems, and a lot of the people that she gives rides to do have some more problems and issues, she believes, than she does. So if she can listen to them, she's supporting them, and she doesn't have to think about her own issues. Anybody else know your style? What do you do? What do you resort to, your style?
Count your blessings.
Count your blessings. Yeah, I don't officially have gratitude on here, but taking stress breaks is part of that, because you're meditating, you're being mindful, and you're supporting that way. Yes, good point. Count your blessings and be grateful. Anyone else want to share? All right, thank you. Well, part of resilience is, of course, overcoming fear. And there's three main areas of fear of resuming your life. Like, I was afraid of falling again. I have not put my hand in my pocket when I've been walking down the street, even if they're cold. I will not put my hands in them. I do not want them to be stuck if I trip. I need to have them available so I can catch myself. Not that I would, I could fall backwards, whatever, but I am afraid of falling again. I still go out, I still walk Green Lake 4 days a week, and I'm out there, but it's always in the back of my mind. I use a handrail. I do not want to fall if I can help it. Overcoming fear of change. You know, when something happens in your life that you had no way of preventing, it's tough, because then you might have to do something to change to make sure it doesn't happen again. Or if you've lost a loved one, you're going to have to change your life because you're living without that person. Lots of different situations. Fear of change is really rough. And the older we get, it doesn't mean we don't like change. It means we've seen so much change that we are not sure we want to see that much more, especially if it's negative. And then people are often afraid of growing. You know, to grow and to learn something new, growing, maybe becoming more social, maybe helping more people, that's tough. But yeah, part of resilience is overcoming some of those fears and moving forward. Well, you've all heard the phrase that when one door closes, another one opens, but it's hell in the hallway. Boy, that's true. When you're going through something, it can be rough. When you're in the middle, you haven't moved on yet, and that other door hasn't opened. If you think about it, for a seed, a little seed to germinate and succeed, it must completely come undone. It actually, you know, the shell cracks, the insides come out, and everything changes. And to someone who doesn't understand growth, it looks like destruction. But we have to open ourselves up if we're going to move forward. Rumi said, where there's ruin, there's hope for treasure. We have a broken ship, and maybe there's a big treasure chest down there. Here I am, practicing on Mount Rainier to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, which I did a couple years after I was broken. And but one of the silver linings that I learned from breaking myself was I can no longer carry anything more than 20 pounds. So I don't have to go backpacking ever again in my life. I like hiking, I like walking, I like day hikes for 6 or 8 miles. I don't enjoy backpacking. I was getting to the point where last time I wanted to hike in for 3 days and camp overnight and carry everything I owned on my back and all the food and the tents and the sleeping bags and the air mattresses and all that stuff. I was just getting tired of that at about age 65, and then I fell and broke everything, so I don't have to do it anymore. Even if I kind of wanted to, or my friends wanted to. So there's a silver lining in this change in my life, and I'm okay with it. So I'll just leave you with, think about, is there anything you'll try more of now that you're looking at these different ways to overcome a problem in your life? Is there anything you think you'd like to try? Maybe you haven't. You don't have to share it, but if you'd like to, I'd love to hear it. Well, life is not about how fast you run or about how high you climb, but how well you bounce. And that's why I gave you the rubber band, so that you could think about snapping back. And if you didn't get a rubber band, be sure and get one. There's still some more on the chairs. Take one to your friends and all of your fabulous friends who couldn't make it. And think about snapping back when something happens to you. And that is all I have today. Are there any questions or additional comments? Thank you for coming. Thank you.